Beyond Plastics New Jersey chapter, along with Janette, who will introduce herself in a second, climate reality leader and a member of the Westwood Green Team. So I thank you for coming today. This program and one is on the 20th are co-sponsored by the Westwood Green Team and the Cranford Environmental Commission. Yes, sit down, please. So thank you for all of you who came from Cranford, far from Cranford to come here tonight. And introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm going to use a mic only because I think we're getting filmed and it makes it a little bit easier. Otherwise, I'd be happy to ditch it. I'm Janette Spiezio, longtime Westfield resident, 30 years. I am a climate reality leader, as is Lois, and co-founder of Beyond Plastics New Jersey chapter, which is, we'll talk more about what that is. I'm also owner at Sustainable Haus Mercantile, which is in Summit. We're a zero waste refill store, so that means you can fill up all your products without any packaging at all, so no plastic. And everything is environmentally friendly, so if you're looking for solutions, we have them. Yeah, that's it.
I'm going to listen to that part, like, the whole day. That'll be exciting. Just a little bit more about part 2 of this. You're all highly encouraged to join at the Cranford Community Center on the 20th. Plastic People, I've seen it 5 times now. It is really an incredibly rich with the latest medical knowledge, and we all want you to come in Cranford at their lovely space. So that is on the 20th. And
the time says 6:30 to 7:30.
does it say 7:30?
Yeah, we're 7:30.
That's kind of late. Okay, I'll figure that out then. Because we're going to do a little preamble before the movie. The movie runs about 80 minutes. So, and I know a lot of libraries close like at 9. So
Well, the community
Community
center
center.
until 10.
thank you for telling me that. Okay, good to know. We'll make some adjustments. Thank you. So, have a seat. Yeah, we'll find there's 2 seats up here. Maybe some things.
Are you saying that?
So, just by a show of hands, we kind of want to know why people came today. Was it because you heard something about plastic and you were concerned? Was it that you don't know anything about it? Like, we're trying to get gauge why. Yeah, so just raise your hand. Did you come because you've been hearing a lot about in the news and you're concerned about your health and plastic?
Yes.
Okay. Are any of you, have you been doing other reading, or do you feel like this is your first foray into deep dive about why plastic is problematic? Okay.
First, okay.
What else do you want to know?
I was going to say, did you come because you're kind of super earthy, crunchy environmentalists that, you know, like some of us, and you just like to come to these kind of things? Okay. Okay.
Good. So that will help us. All right, so we're going to start with a little do now, and I don't see it necessarily in young people around the room, but that's what teachers always start with. I used to be a middle school science teacher. So I want you just to take a few minutes to reflect, look around the room, and I want you to observe all the plastic that's in the room. So just in your head, just observe. I want you to think about what you brought with you tonight, whether it's, oh, I need this. Better? Okay. I want you to think about what you brought with you, whether it's the clothes you're wearing, maybe it's your phone, your bag, your glasses, anything you have with you, the plastic that's there. And in particular, things that might be touching your skin. That could be synthetic fabrics or plastic of some kind. So just keep a mental note of that. We're going to get back to that later today. And just start to be cognizant of how much plastic is all around us. Was it always that way? So I'm looking around the room. You look like you're my peers, so think back when we were little. Right, so level setting on what plastic is, you probably know this all, but we're just gonna go through it quickly. Primarily derived from petroleum and gas. So these are a way for the fossil fuel companies to pivot and come up with new products, especially as we transition to green energy. The most common types you probably recognize: polyethylene, polypropylene, polyvinyl, and those are your ones, twos. We know these numbers from recycling. So the polyethylenes, the 1, 2s, those are going to be all the bottles that we see. Number 5 would be, that's like fast food containers,
Restaurant takeout containers.
yogurt containers. And then polyvinyl chloride, number 3s, so that's going to be like wraps, rings, those kinds of things. But plastics are not just, when you think of plastic packaging, it's also a lot of chemicals. So these polymers that are added into all different kinds of products that make them more durable, more flexible, maybe stain resistant, maybe fire retardants, color
Colorful.
fast. All of those things are actually plastics.
If I can interrupt for 1 second, does anyone have a Lexus with the license plate beginning FET that's from the outside? No? All right, sorry about that. Anything for that? And it's in the handicap spot?
Yes.
The alarm keeps going on.
Thank you. Have any of you heard of bioplastics before?
Yes.
Okay.
How many of you like them?
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay. So bioplastics is a strategy that the plastic manufacturers are using to suggest that they are safer, better for the environment, because they're taking natural materials. It could be corn, it could be soy, it could be any kind of natural material, and combining it with all of those polymers, all that oil, gas additives to make a plastic. It is still plastic. It's still anything that you hear that plastic is bad for you, whether it's a bioplastic or a traditional plastic, it's still plastic.
anybody who's reached out to me to try to get us to buy some bioplastic bags at the store, and I'll say, okay, well, can you tell me what they're made of? Because they always say they're so proud. It's a bag made out of corn. And I go, okay, well, what else is in it besides corn? Well, just corn. And I go, it's interesting because it's a very consistent green color. Well, corn is green. The leaves are green. I'm like, it's not just corn. If you can come back and tell me what it's made of, then we can talk about it. And not once does anyone ever come back, which isn't to say that we should never use one. There are certain, we're not absolutists here. There's a good use of all kinds of things. And there might be a reason that you want to use a bioplastic bag, but ultimately, there's still a version of plastic in my mind. And there's nothing really particularly good about them. In fact, what Beyond Plastics will tell you is that they're harder to recycle, right? So, and then they take all the resources to extract the natural thing, like the corn, the avocado, whatever its base is, plus all the others. So it takes more energy to make it. It's not really recyclable. It's not particularly better. It's got all the same problems of plastic, and it doesn't even last very long. So, and when it breaks down into little plastic pieces.
How do we become so plastic oriented?
Oh.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Everything we purchase, everything we eat is in plastic. I resent that. I go out of my way to go to a fruit store,
Mhm.
vegetable store, that I can get a paper bag and put my vegetables in. They don't have a lot of vegetables, but
And that's awesome that you're doing that.
I resent these plastics.
Yes.
So when you ask the question of why, to me it's very, very simple. It's all about the money, right? So and we'll probably talk about this later, but as we'll see it later. It's about the money. And a second thing, which we won't really cover today, but after the World War, I forget which one, the U.S. government wanted to create a a focus on obsolescence so that they could continue to manufacture more stuff to create jobs. So if you ask why does my vacuum only last me 5 years and then die, that's the answer. But plastics were really a part of that, right? The plastic industry started to focus on, isn't it great to be able to take your entire dinner service and throw it away? And Americans bought into it. And that's the why behind how did we get here.
Okay, so derived from petroleum, this is actually a cracking facility. Do you know where the picture was? It's
This is in Beaver County. It opened in 2022, and its shell is leaving after
Right,
having the greatest taxpayer subsidy to build it.
right. And we're very grateful we do not have any of these facilities in New Jersey, but there are, 40, 50 in the United States. There's a lot in the United States, right? Is that many?
More.
More,
they keep
okay,
popping
and
up.
they keep
They
popping
keep
up.
popping up.
Okay.
Have you all heard of Cancer Alley down in the Gulf?
Yeah.
Lots of them there.
All right, some more definitions. You've heard microplastics, nanoplastics. So plastic will get smaller and smaller and smaller. Most of the time, plastic is not manufactured as microplastic. It is the constant erosion, weathering of larger pieces of plastic, whether it's through water, wind, movement, abrasion. That's
Laundry.
yes, that's taking agitation mechanically, and it's breaking down a big piece of plastic into a smaller piece of plastic. There are some microplastics that are manufactured that way. We used to put little beads into health and beauty products. We don't do that anymore in this country. But by and large, it is happening through mechanical means. And it's defined as something that's under 5 millimeters in size. So you can see, and this was a great picture from Kathy, who's getting credit for a lot of the slides you see here today, that we start with smaller pieces, they go into the water, they go into the air. I was listening to a report last night that said that 84% of the plastics that are in the atmosphere, anyone want to guess where they originate from? You probably know. No, but that's a good guess. Tires, yep, tires.
What?
They come from tires, so they come from all that stop and go. And remember, our tires are now plastic. They're not made from rubber anymore. It's all plastic. So that constant, friction and stop and go, and it's having little pieces of the tire, and then they go out into the atmosphere. But then fibers is another big thing that is also absolutely, and if you are taking stock of what you're wearing, I bet you have some synthetic fibers in your clothing somewhere.
And even if your clothing is all wool, cotton, linen, it is stitched with polyester or nylon thread. Period, full stop. So there is some plastic in everything that we're wearing. And for most of us who wear underwear, there is some level of elastane or like spandexy, something to make it more stretchy. And that's, it's really hard to entirely avoid it. Socks too.
Yes. So our water has a lot of microplastic in it. We talked about the air. Soil, Rutgers has done a study on soil in industrial areas like ours in the state. Up to 6% of our soil is now plastic. 6%. Which means if you're a gardener like I am, your vegetables are uptaking plastic from the soil. And then we're here today because plastic is in our bodies. Nanoplastics are that much smaller. So think of it's 1 over 10,000 millimeters. So they're teeny tiny. We're talking like size of virus. So really, really small. Again, that constant continuing to erode, to break down through heat, through wind, through water. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And what's so concerning about that is because they are so small, they have passed through into our cells, and they can go into tissue, into bone, and most recently the study from February showed that they've crossed through the blood-brain barrier. So we do have plastic in our brain. It's debatable how much, 6 grams, 7 grams, depending upon who you are, but there's absolutely plastic in all of our organs, including our brain.
And that whatever number of grams is approximately the amount of a plastic spoon.
Yeah.
So that's what's in our brains.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I used to think, as kids, you'd swallow something you shouldn't have swallowed, and your parents make sure it comes back out, right? Plastic doesn't just do that. It's these nanoplastics that are getting through and getting stuck in our body. So it's not like just because I ate the fish and it had micro and nanoplastics in, it came back out. They don't. They get stuck, and we don't really know how to ultimately get them out. And in fact, scientists don't really have an answer to that right now. So that means that all the risks of plastic are residing within us.
Yeah, so there's some that will pass through your urine and your sweat, but there's other plastics that get into your muscle, into your bones, they are bioaccumulating in your body. Which is why, when you see the movie on the 20th, I think the thing that blew me away the most was, for those of you who have grandchildren, they are in a much more precarious place than we are, because we had those good first couple decades where it was not so pervasive, whereas they have had it from the very beginning.
NPR story said it's in breast milk.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
That totally freaked me out.
Yeah.
But it has to be. It's in our water. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And then for the moms that are feeding their babies with plastic bottles, with plastic nipples, and storing breast milk and other milk in plastic containers and heating them in plastic containers, I mean, it's millions per day for some of those babies.
So I'm going to go through these quickly, and I don't want to get us too depressed, because our goal today is really to give you some agency on what can you do to improve your health, your family's health, those around you that you care, and then more expansively, what can you do, and it sort of gets to what you had mentioned, to advocate for larger change in our communities and the state.
So we want you to think of three categories. What changes are you going to make? And you only have to name one or think of one, but there might be a bunch of them for you. And we'll get to this later, but some of the handouts will give you, will get really practical. And think about somebody to bring along the journey, right? You might have come here with somebody, but is there somebody else, a child, a parent, a sibling, a book club, a work coworker? Because the more that we all spread the word, the more that we'll have an impact. And then thirdly, how can you help make broader change besides just what you control personally and your influence, your relationships? But just like we're co-founding Beyond Plastics, there's different things you can do, and there's some of them are really easy. But the more of us that make noise, the more that we will get change.
So I'm going to go through these quickly when you come to the movie, because you're all agreeing to come to the movie on the 20th. It's going to go into a lot of this in detail, and you're going to see scientists talk about their current research. So plastics in our body are absolutely causing cell damage, which is a lot of the research is looking at why do we have so many more inflammatory diseases. Could it be tied to these chemicals that are in our body? The chemical additives that are put in plastics, again, for color, for flexibility, durability, all of those things, they leach over time. So that's going into your food. And we definitely, hopefully, Janette has a post on Instagram. We have a Beyond Plastic Instagram that talks about, for the love of God, stop microwaving in plastic. So hopefully you're all doing that. But that heating of plastic gets into your food, and then you're eating it. And Judith Enck, who's the president of Beyond Plastics National, she was one of Obama's EPA directors. Her number one thing she tells students, because she teaches at Bennington College, is never, never, never use microwave popcorn bags. They are the absolute most toxic thing. So go home, tell people you don't care about not to do
Don't buy a
that.
microwave, period.
Okay.
For sure. But if you do have a microwave and you love microwaving popcorn, it's just kernels in a dish in the microwave.
Yeah.
And you're avoiding the bag and all the toxic ingredients that it's coming with. So
Yeah.
There's always ways to do things. It's about how you do them smartly.
Okay. Cancer, you're going to hear a lot about in the movie. Virtually every kind of cancer is tied in some way to plastics, whether it's the fibers or the additives. Especially, there's big links to breast milk and breast cancer, prostate, testicular cancer. Endocrine disruption is another big thing. So again, looking at this audience, making some assumptions. If you have children that are thinking of giving you grandchildren, or you know people who are thinking of that, a real concern. Our fertility rates are dropping precipitously around the world, but the research is suggesting that plastic accumulation in the body is doing that. But it also is related to diabetes, obesity, blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and we also think it has neurological impacts, especially on children. So the research comes fast and furious every week. There's a weekly newsletter that is that Halt the Harm? I think it's called Halt the Harm, I get, that talks about studies every single week coming out that are talking about research with plastic and human health. Okay, and then finally I mentioned the brain, so crossing through that blood-brain barrier, and you can see the picture in the middle is showing some brain tissue and those tiny little pieces that are in the brain, and they're doing analysis, could this be having to do with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, those kind of neurological diseases because of that buildup. Much like plaque, you've got this plastic in the brain. Global use. This is a bad copy of a really good chart that from the UN that's pretty much showing over time how much, so in the middle of the chart is sort of now the proliferation of plastic that's happening. So it goes out to 2060. The United States is all the way at the top, so we use the most plastic, we have the most plastic, but our volumes are expected to double between now and 2060 because more and more manufacturers and more ways to bring plastic into our life. But all countries, more and more countries are just using plastic. And not only is it steeply rising, but it's got more and more chemicals in it. There's only a very few that are banned around the world and almost none in the United States, 14 or something. I mean, it's pitiful.
In personal care,
Yeah, very, very few.
So can I just take
Yeah.
1 second and just say a couple of things? So, when you see a plastic container and it says no BPA and you're thinking, okay, that's a safe one? Absolutely not. So BPA is a hormone disruptor, estrogen mimicker, endocrine problem. And when they can't use BPA, they use BPS or BPF. They use they make these slight variations in these chemicals. So there are thousands of chemicals that go into the production of plastic. So the BPA is the thing that gives plastic the rigidity, and it allows it to do all kinds of, some are hard plastics, soft plastics, and the bisphenols help with that. So if you see a can that says, BPA free, it's going to have something very similar. And we'll talk about that in a minute. And the other thing that you find in a lot of plastics is phthalates. Phthalates, PHTHAL. Phthalates keep scent and color longer. And they're pretty much always in plastic. And this stuff is not just shedding microplastics, right? Your plastic is shedding microplastics, but it's off-gassing, those two things. So the chemicals in there, all undisclosed, right? If you pick up a piece of plastic and you wonder what's in it, there is no answer. No one is telling us. So the problem is just getting worse and worse.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to show you a quick movie that gives a little bit more background, and then we're going to go to things that you can do. Janette's going to talk about specific things you can do to reduce plastics from your life.
And if you haven't seen any of the story of stuff, there's like 50 of them. They're all excellent.
Probably heard about the giant trash island in the ocean. Or that poor sea turtle and the straw.
I'm gonna
nearby.
start it over. Hold on.
About a giant trash island in the ocean. Or that poor sea turtle and the straw. Maybe you've even heard how plastic is being found inside the fish we eat. The plastic crisis gets a lot of attention, but the headlines usually focus on the plastic that ends up in the environment. And that's just part of the story. The truth is, plastic has a whole life cycle that's hidden from view, one that harms people and the planet from start to finish. Let's start at the beginning. Plastic is made from fossil fuels like oil or fracked natural gas. Extracting those fossil fuels and turning them into plastics creates a lot of pollution. Pollution that most often affects marginalized communities nearby. As we've gotten better about using less oil and gas to power our lives, the fossil fuel industry found a lifeline in plastics. In fact, oil and gas companies are doubling down on plastic production, with plans to build or expand over 300 petrochemical plants in the US alone by 2025. But these companies already produce more plastic than we can use. So where's all that plastic going? A lot of it's flowing into new markets in places like Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Because more than any other product category, plastic isn't driven by the demand for it, but by the supply. Corporations like Unilever, Nestle, and Procter & Gamble are aggressively marketing single-use plastic products around the world. These companies go to places like Indonesia, where I live, and push their products onto communities that just aren't prepared to deal with all that plastic. Maybe they're used to using natural packaging. Maybe they live on a tiny island without a system of waste collection. And on top of that, countries in the global north are shipping their own plastic waste into these countries too. When you add that all up, it's no wonder so much of this plastic ends up in the environment. And globally, that's where a whopping 32% of plastic packaging ends up. 40% goes to a landfill, where plastic just piles up for future generations to deal with. And 14% is incinerated. Incineration is a nasty business, producing toxic smoke and fly ash. These super expensive facilities depend on plastic to burn everything else. It is oil and gas after all. So they want to see more plastic, not less. Then there's recycling. Unfortunately, it's not the solution that many people think it is. Just 14% of plastic packaging gets recycled, and only 2% is effectively recycled, meaning it becomes something as useful as before. The rest is downcycled into something worse. And most recycled plastic is only recycled once before ending up in landfills, incinerators, or the environment anyway. So it turns out that we can't burn, bury, or recycle our way out of this problem. And we can't just scoop all that plastic out of the environment either. That's like trying to bail out a bathtub with a teaspoon while the tap is on full blast. So how about we turn off the tap by shutting down the plastic machine? That means passing policies that create systemic change. Like phasing out the single-use plastics that pollute the most, ending the fossil fuel subsidies that are fueling big plastic, and holding companies responsible for the plastic waste they create. That's how we can achieve our vision of a zero-waste future, where all of our products and packaging can be reused or repaired, effectively recycled or composted, and ultimately how we create a sustainable, circular economy that works for both people and the planet. Visit storyofplastic.org to learn more and take action.
Okay. I just want to give you a couple reference points for New Jersey before I turn it over to Janette. That we do have a higher rate of recycling than, because this was globally. It's still not great. I think our total recycling is like 30% for all recycling, but it's higher than the amount that was stated. For the towns that we're in here in Union County, our garbage if it goes to the Conservation Center, then it does go to Bayshore, which is in Middlesex County, and they do have markets where they try to effectively or downcycle the material, and I'm talking specifically for plastics now. Downcycled plastics are actually the studies that are coming out, Janette and I were talking about it earlier, they're actually even more dangerous. They break into nanoplastics that much faster, so it's questionable if that's even good. But plastic that doesn't get to the Conservation Center, that ends up in our garbage, that is incinerated in Rahway. So not so far away from us, and then that goes into the atmosphere and people are breathing it in.
And of course, our trash is incinerated in a low-income community, because you know if they wanted to build the incinerator in our backyard, we'd all be fighting it. Okay, so I'm going to start with really basic. I'm just one person, what can I do? And I'm going to give you a little story, and excuse my math because I tell it a little differently every time and then the math doesn't always work. But if one of us switches to a shampoo and conditioner bar, the average person uses 12 bottles of hair care a year, so that's 12 bottles. But if we all switch somewhere midway in our lives, and we all live to, I'm just going to use a round number, 90, that's 45 years of change on average. 45 years of change times 12 bottles is somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 bottles. And the real impact, and this gets at sort of the second thing we asked of you when we started, is getting others around you, right? So when you have a great experience with shampoo and conditioner bars, and you love them, and then you get your daughter, your son, your husband or wife, your 2 book club friends, a couple of coworkers, maybe your garden club person, your neighbor, and all of a sudden, that one change that you made, you influenced another dozen people. So 500 times another 10 is like 5,000. And then you wake up one day and you say, well, if I can do shampoo and conditioner in a bar, why am I buying my dish soap in a plastic bottle and my laundry detergent? And can I switch over to powders? And can I buy toothpaste tablets? And now you're making lots of changes, or you're coming to a refill store. And so that impact is then 15,000 bottles, just from that one change. So besides that, there are each one of us, and there's 7 billion plus of us on the planet, there are so many ways that all of us making change collectively has a huge impact. So don't underestimate how much the impact is. So I'm going to be really practical, and I'm going to try not to go too long. We should be super interactive, so feel free to ask any questions and chime in as you'd like. But okay, so what kinds of changes can we make? I've made a lot of them. I think there's always more to make, for me included. So food. And this is another question I get asked a lot. Where should I start? And if you ask me what kind of house should I buy, it's a different answer for each of you. So where should you start with reducing plastic? It's a different answer for each of us. But if you're looking for some universal guidance, it's around your food, right? Because we're ingesting it. So if you can get more of your food without plastic, and that is buying it, storing it, eating it. I don't go anywhere without a stainless steel water bottle, and in this case, my mason jar of iced tea. This has it might look like a plastic lid, but inside is stainless, so there it's entirely stainless what is touching my water. I'll show you. So I got the right lid. Yep. So plastic on the outside, but stainless on the inside. And water filters matter. Reverse osmosis is the way to go if you're trying to filter out things like PFAS. Does everybody know what PFAS are? Okay. PFAS are often referred to as forever chemicals. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. I think I got that about right. They are the things, they do about 4 different things. Flame retardant, non-stick, waterproof, stain resistant, Those are the main things. So I like to, again, not be absolute about things. I want to stay so far clear of these forever chemicals, these poly and perfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, because they stay in our bodies a really, really long time and they're really toxic. And that's why they're called forever chemicals. But today might be raining when we leave, and guess what? If we want waterproof coats and jackets, mine's in the corner, it's going to be covered with something. And just because it says this particular brand of something is PFAS free or free of one of those chemicals, there are up to 15,000 different PFAS chemicals or forever chemicals on the market to do all these really cool things. So I do not trust anything that specifically says this product doesn't contain this one toxic substance, because they've just replaced it with something else. So finding food, buying food without taking a plastic bag. I don't even take a paper bag. I either bring a box or a reusable produce bag, and Lois might have some we can give out. We don't have one for everybody, but we will have some. I try to buy as much food as possible without plastic packaging, and that's really hard if you like to eat things like crackers. But if you're buying ketchup, there's a glass bottle option. And you can definitely get a lot of food in bulk when you really look. I shop the farmer's market and my garden and a farm share. Never microwave or heat plastic. Never microwave or heat plastic. So when you're out at a restaurant, if you're bringing home leftovers, those leftovers are warm and they're often going in plastic. Not for me, they don't, because I bring with me a metal food storage container. All the restaurants that we go to know us because we always bring our container. You can also bring glass. This has a little bit of silicone around it, so it's like a little bit tighter, but the top is glass as well. So these are the kinds of things that we use in our house, but we don't take plastic, and definitely we don't take any styrofoam. That's like even worse. It's just straight up carcinogenic. Okay, so swapping out how we buy our food, how we store our food, it's hard, right? It took me about 6 years to get plastic out of my drinking because I like kombucha. I didn't want single-use glass containers with plastic lids, so I started to make it. I make my own vegan milk because milk always comes in a container. By the way, every paper or plastic cup you've ever used is lined in plastic. Every can of peas, beans, corn, whatever, can of anything, tomato sauce is lined in plastic. Otherwise, it would corrode. And I've done videos. You can take a paper cup and get the paper to peel off and still hold the liquid in the plastic liner. So this is just the way life is. Otherwise, the paper would melt. When you put toilet paper in the toilet, it melts. It dissolves. A paper cup doesn't dissolve anymore. Your coffee can sit in there for 3 days and it's fine. It's the plastic liner. Yeah.
So the amount of absorbed the plastic cup, coffee cup, not as aware of the metal can issue, but is it less in the metal can? Is there, you know what I mean? Is it less?
It's hard to know for sure. So coffee cans are generally not lined. They're just like they're just a dry can, right? So they're not lined because it's not wet. Yeah. So I probably should clarify and say anything with like wet stuff in it. And what I notice is we use coffee cans to put laundry detergent in them. They will corrode. So that's how I'm pretty sure they're not plastic lined. But everything else is going to have some level of lining. And just from baby bottles, the study on that, from which I know is not cans, but those would shed millions of microplastics every single day. So we don't know how much, but if you're trying to reduce, right, these are just things that you can control. And you don't have to control everything because none of us are perfect. And there's always going to be a time where we're imperfect. But for me, it's been a 10-year journey of one change after another, and our kitchen is pretty plastic free. I will definitely have some plastic lids on some of my containers, but overall, it's a pretty plastic free environment, except crackers, potato chips, corn chips. So we don't eat a lot of them, but we eat some of them, and I don't know how else to do it. So we could make them.
What do you suggest if you like to buy fruits and vegetables? How do you get them from the store to the house?
So
Fresh fruits and vegetables.
yeah, so the question is, how do we get fruits and vegetables home? I mean, a lot of this is just look back to how our parents did it, right? When I was 14, which was a long, long time ago, because I'm 60, I worked at a farmer's market, and everything was paper bags. But before that, before paper bags, you just brought your own, which is what the state of New Jersey has done, except not for produce bags, which is really a shame. But just, I bring a box with me to the farmer's market, and I'll bring some cloth bags. Do you want to pull some of those out, Lois? So just like you get everything else home, you get your produce home. And it's going to get washed when it gets home anyway. And by the way, it was touched at the farm. Somebody picked it, right? It's not free of all germs anyway. So produce bags are the main way to go. But really anything, because I often stop on my way home from work, and my car is a work vehicle, so I don't always have the bags that I should have in the car. So I just grab a box. If you're at the grocery, just ask them for a spare box, and it's pretty easy. If you're not familiar with what a tare weight is the weight of the container. And so on most bags, I don't think these will have it, but most bags have a tare weight. So if you're going to the checkout, they should be able to take off the weight of the bag. That's how it's supposed to work. We are not yet in a society where that is mainstream yet. So
Most stores ask you what your container is.
They ask you what kind of container you have.
but if you've brought your own, they
No, you
really?
put, yeah, at ShopRite, we put our own bags in.
ShopRite, Whole Foods.
Okay.
They ask you how many you bring and
So Whole Foods, you have to actually have your container tared. You have to tear it.
Well, no, I know I buy stuff at Whole Foods, and it comes up and it says, what kind of package?
Yes, but those are
Fruit or vegetables, or like that.
But those are generally the plastic packaging, single-use stuff they give you, right?
No, because I bring my own bags for fruit and vegetables.
we bring our own
Little
cloth bags.
net bags, and, so we hit that.
and you
Or
put
no
them.
container, or.
Huh. Okay. Well, for sure, no container. Yes. Well, that's great.
There's 12 or 15 different containers that you can choose from.
I always have all mine teared because there's such a variety of jars. But yes, so we're getting there, but it is slow. Okay, I'm gonna go a little faster, but I think food is one of the most important things, and it's so much harder than you think, and it really is a journey, and it feels really good to make those changes. For example, I don't eat fish anymore because I know it's full of plastic, and I don't want to eat that. So that is I know, it's a change. Okay, what else? Our skin is our largest organ, so I care very much what touches my skin. And that's kind of a whole bunch of things. So for starters, it's laundry detergent, and it's a little, I'm gonna be a little bit off from pure plastics, but the ingredients in most laundry detergent is, pretty eye-opening. So I always want to use clean ingredient laundry detergents, dryer balls. If you look at the Environmental Working Group, they actually have a footnote that says never use softener. Dryer balls do all those same things. They're all natural. They last years and years and years. You only buy them once, and it's just a super win, and they look like this. I can only get 2 in my hand, but these are wool dryer balls. They eliminate static, help reduce wrinkles, dry things faster. This is a powder laundry detergent. This box is, just for perspective, is $17. It does up to 128 loads. That's about 15 cents a load, and it's super compact, and there's the only piece of tape is this one little piece right here. You can also get it completely package free, but the one thing to always avoid Anybody heard of, I'm not gonna ask you if you use them, but has anybody heard of these laundry strips? They're so convenient, and they'll say, plastic-free packaging. It is plastic-free packaging, but these all contain polyvinyl alcohol, PVA. Polyvinyl alcohol, by its definition, is plastic, and if poly might have given it away, but the actual molecular definition of polyvinyl alcohol is plastic. And when this goes into our water stream, it dissolves in our laundry, cleans our clothes, but our municipalities cannot filter it out. So it ends up in the rivers, in the fish, it evaporates into the rain. I mean, it's everywhere. So at our store, we don't sell these. I won't use these.
I just want to highlight that the label, the box says Eco Clean Sheets. So this is an example of greenwashing. Anytime you see eco, sustainable, green, you want to really look at the ingredients to understand what is that.
And they often like to do green packaging. I think brown is about as green as you can get as well. Like they're kind of saying oh, our packaging is good. And the packaging is good, for sure. But greenwashing is when they pick on one little thing. And they're like, oh, this is good because it's corn-based. It's environmentally friendly. It's limited packaging. It's good for all these whatever reasons. But at the end of the day, they're just trying to get you to buy it. And they're not telling you the whole story. And they're just trying to get a sale based on telling you it's green when it really isn't.
I don't understand what your laundry thing is you were holding up. Can you show those, please?
This?
It's a box of powder.
Oh, it's a box of powder.
It's a,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought
There's
maybe-
absolutely no air in here. There's no excess weight. It's all paper, fully compostable, fully recyclable, and just 2 pounds of laundry detergent in
It's
here.
powder.
Powder.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I thought maybe that had some different sheets that
No,
are
no.
good.
There are no sheets.
That are good.
There are no sheets that are plastic-free. And that includes dishwasher as well. Any dishwasher pods, that little coating, that's polyvinyl alcohol again. Yeah, it's a problem. Okay, so our skin's our largest organ. Laundry detergent sits on our skin. One of those big brands that starts with a T and rhymes with ride lists 80-some ingredients on their website, 80-some chemicals. And they do what they're supposed to do. They get out grass stains and wine stains and oil stains and all that. But if we can't filter out polyvinyl alcohol, I'm pretty sure we can't. And pharmaceuticals, I'm pretty sure we can't filter out all those ingredients in that detergent or any detergent. So if you don't start with clean ingredients, not only is it resting on your skin, your underwear, your sheets, your towels, but it's getting into our water and our air. When it comes to our skin, clothing, I don't wear synthetics. So I'm wearing jeans. There might be a little bit of spandex in these, I suppose. Cotton shirt, cotton thing, cotton undies, and I don't want to wear polyester. And I wear it a little bit here and there, but my workout clothes are cotton. I try to do organic cotton. I thrift a lot, and reduce, right? We don't need a new wardrobe every 2 months. We don't need to support Shein and those kind of, companies, and that's what a lot of young people are doing. So, reducing is huge. And I'm just gonna make the point that babies and kids are really hugely impacted. Because their bodies are growing, the bad stuff hits them harder. So when we look at BPA as tested in urine, kids under 6 tend to have higher percentages than adults. So the more that you can do for the really young ones in your lives, it's just hugely important. I'm going to talk for a minute about fragrances. Fragrances in household cleaning products should just be avoided. And fragrances are going to be in personal care as well, and there's always some exceptions, but the thing with fragrance, there's 2 main problems. A boatload of chemicals that are undisclosed, and the phthalate problem. Phthalate is that ingredient that keeps the scent or the color lasting longer. So when you see a laundry detergent that's bright blue, or a dish soap that's bright green, soaps aren't normally that color. They had color added, and then the phthalates keep the color. and that wonderful fresh spring scent. Same with air fresheners. Candles are another big issue. So to find products that don't have those are really important. The more that you can clean up, the better. If you've never seen, HBO Max has a series called Not So Pretty. It's a 4-part, 1 hour each series. One is on fragrance, one is on nail polish, and if you're wondering if all the nail workers are ultimately coming down with various cancers, they pretty much are. That's what the docu-series will tell you. This is a 15 free nail polish, free of the 15 worst toxins like formaldehyde resin, toluene, and a bunch of others. So there are better ones, but the best treatment for your nails is nothing. But again, not everybody can do that. So we don't judge. My daughter is a nail polish girl. I called her up one day, because I don't make my kids do things, but I called her up one day, she's 28, and I said, you're gonna get rid of all your traditional nail polishes. And you need to go with a 10 free or a 15 free option. And she said, okay, Mom. She called me 2 days later, she lives in California, and she said, okay, I swapped out my nail polish, and I went, great. She moved into a new place, and I said, no vinyl floors. And she said, I know. We didn't even have an argument. She moved in, and her second day in there, she ripped all the floors out, donated them to Habitat for Humanities, and she has hardwood floors. That's what was under the vinyl.
But then somebody else is gonna have the vinyl floor.
That is absolutely true. Now, when it comes to a nonstick pan, you will never see a nonstick pan, and when you ask me what to do with that, I'm gonna say throw it away. However, in Habitat for Humanity, they are going to buy vinyl flooring. Period, full stop. There's nothing else they're going to do. So hers was a brand new floor that had just been installed in her place, and so donating it gave it a second life versus producing a whole new floor. So in that case, we found that that was a better solution. But these are ethically difficult challenges. You know, you could argue that every time you take a plastic bag, you should never reuse it, ever, because it's leaching, it's like all those things, right? But yet here it is. And if you're gonna if you need to use a Ziploc bag again, you might as well use the one you had the last time. Do something with it, right? So if Habitat's gonna buy those floors, then donating them was better than throwing them away, because they're just gonna end up in landfill. Okay, so avoiding fragrances in personal care. Think about what you're using to clean. Cleaning products really matter. I'll give you another quickie. This is a $1.25 pod. It makes a bottle of counter cleaner. That's it. Just a little bar of soap. That's it. Reusable wipes are really helpful. And you might say, well, paper towel, it's just paper, right? It's just trees. Okay, well, a lot of it's recycled. The recycled paper has BPA in it. It's always wrapped in plastic. It takes a lot of water to grow those trees. There's a bunch of other environmental impacts. So if you can, switch to reusables in whatever you do, it's just going to be an environmental win. Okay. Bigger purchases. When you're buying flooring, when you're buying siding, when you're redoing something in your house, research it. Because just like we talked about clothing being generally, sports clothing, young people's clothing, it's almost all synthetic. You have to work hard to not buy synthetic clothing. Well, the same is true for everything inside your house. Couches, curtains, flooring, carpets, carpet padding, all of that is just loaded with plastics. So when you're making a big purchase, take the time to do the research and find a product that's a better choice. Because we can't just go home and change everything. Nobody has the money, it's a lot of resources, it's a lot of energy, there's a million reasons why that's hard. But when you're starting out, do it right the first time. And don't worry about perfection. Okay, that's larger purchases. I'm going to talk another point about homes. Vinyl. vinyl chloride is one of the worst plastics, one of the most carcinogenics, one of the worst. Vinyl siding, vinyl flooring, vinyl shower curtain, vinyl rubber ducks, vinyl raincoats. I mean, vinyl is pretty pervasive. It's one of the worst, so if you can avoid it, that's a good thing. Fencing is often vinyl, and decking, and also, have you ever seen the mulch that's from tire rubber? Yeah, well, it's there, and once these things get out, right? And turf fields, you're going to talk about that. Lois is going to talk about turf fields. Inside your home, try to avoid as many synthetics. VOCs, volatile organic compounds, are found in most paints. Paints are getting better, so that's a good thing. Try to just pick as many natural fabrics, but always avoid all of the performance-based stuff. So anything that says flame retardant, stain resistant, waterproof, no, I'll take the stain on my couch because at least it's not super toxic. Bedding, all synthetic and polyester. You have to look pretty hard, but you can find natural rubber and cotton and wool mattresses. They're out there. So when you replace one, that's the big purchase, make a better choice. And same with sheets. I do a lot of thrifting. I make a lot of things out of used fabric, and it's getting harder and harder to find 100% cotton. So when you're buying your sheets and towels and all of that, go for the 100% cotton if you can, or linen. Lawn and garden, avoid synthetics, chemicals outside, and that means, you know, we all know bees are important, right? We all need bees for food production, for our gardens. We care about the bees. Well, if we care about the bees, we can't spray for ticks and mosquitoes. It's a pesticide. It's going to kill the bees too. So bees are dying at just incredible rates. And I guess I'm going to sort of move towards the end, Lois, of this portion, but I'll do some Q&A if people have questions. And I want to sort of just say, like, keep calm and carry on. Don't get stressed over this. Like, I see a lot of people, and it can be, I know what I just said was scary. When you start to evaluate your life and you think about all those things that she just said up there, and oh my God, it's all over my house. It's just one step at a time. We've lived this way for me, for 60 years, right? So one day we just have to start making better choices. And many of us have probably already made some pretty good ones, right? So you're starting from a good base, but it's okay to just keep making a change with your next purchase. And so that's what I want to leave you with. Don't be stressed about it. And I want to give a couple other really quick tips. So first of all, in the little thing on the chairs, these were what I just went over is kind of in here, and it folds kind of funny, so I'm sorry. And then there's some tips on the back, and I'm just going to cover a couple of these. I'm going to pick out a few things. This is not on there because I didn't write it on there, but tea bags are generally synthetic or have glues in them, and they shed microplastics. So loose teas always. Don't touch heat-generated receipts, which is pretty much all receipts. Don't touch receipts. And you say, well, what do? Get it emailed, say no thank you, or if you have to touch it, wash your hands right away, never use sanitizer. They're coated in 250 times to 1,000 times more BPA than a can of peas would have.
It ruined my hands during the pandemic. It ate my skin away. I have
Receipts
run.
or sanitizer?
The sanitizer.
Well, so sanitizer increases the absorption of your skin, so that's why you don't sanitize after touching those receipts. But if you can avoid the receipts, that's the way to go. Yes, there are stores. There are 3 that I can name, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and CVS, that say BPA-free receipts. So you wonder, did they use some other chemical that's similar? I think they probably did not, actually. I think they did a pretty good job. But how do you know, and how can you remember that? So for me, I just don't take receipts unless I'm forced to, which is only at the thrift store, pretty much. Sportswear has been found to have really high levels of BPA. So sports bras, leggings, all of that, you want to be careful. That's a great place. Like if you're figuring out, like, where do I start on my wardrobe? and you do workouts, that's the place to start. That and your underwear. A couple quick tips that don't cost anything: dust and clean more often, or as often as possible, because that helps to just get all those plastic carcinogens and plastic toxins out of the house. Open the windows, have more plants. So if you're plant people, more plants are great for air quality. Get a good HEPA filter to filter your air and your vacuum. Get a good water filter, reverse osmosis. But if you ask me anything on Instagram, I will answer under Sustainable House or Beyond Plastics. I'm faster on Sustainable House, slower on Beyond Plastics, but we answer everything. And choose organic whenever you can, because it's not full of pesticides, and it's just regenerative farming is the only thing that's going to preserve our land and topsoil. And so whenever I can, I always support organic only if there's a choice. And even if organic is imperfect, it's so much better than the other ways that farming is done. Questions? I know that was a lot. Yes?
So you mentioned about using glassware to put away stuff, and 40 years ago, Tupperware comes out, and they say they're supposed to be made for food, right? So they don't really shed plastic, or?
So, okay, plastics, so I don't store any, I don't have any plastic food storage in my house except for a few Pyrex lids. When plastic on the bottom says microwave safe and food safe, it's gonna blow your mind. All it means is it doesn't melt.
Safe for the plastic.
It's the plastic won't be harmed by going in the microwave, and that's it. I'm gonna give you a small anecdote because this is a great story. I love this one. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Lois and I were on the green team. I picked up some donated polypropylene bags from ShopRite, and I brought them a mile from Garwood to Westfield to drop them off at our friend's house for Earth Day. 100 bags, front of my little car. I had a little tiny, like compact car. And when I got to her house and I opened the door, I almost passed out. The off-gassing from those bags was unbelievable. So all plastic is gonna off-gas. And when you have a large quantity of brand new plastic, you can smell it and see it and feel it. But when you just have one piece of old Tupperware, you don't see it, feel it, or notice it. But it's doing it, and it's shedding those microplastics. I have a video with a cutting board, and every time you chop a knife on a plastic cutting board, a little bit of plastic comes off, and you don't notice it when you're chopping and tossing it into the soup. But when you go and look for it, it's right there. So, it's happening all the time. And if you look at an old piece of plastic with all the grooves, where did it's missing bits of plastic. Where is that? It's in our food, right? So, or it's gone in our wastewater. But, and the only thing to be careful of with glass is, as much as possible, just make sure it's lead-free and all that kind of thing. So there's brands that I trust more than others. Ball mason jars are fabulous. They've been independently tested. They're like the best thing you can get. And I think Pyrex and Anchor Hocking are pretty good, but I don't know that there's full independent testing.
I just think the future, not for my age group, but younger, is eventually bottling and doing their own foods. I noticed that they're pushing for, bottling,
Like canning and
things like
so
that.
I will tell you,
And mason jars.
So I can my own food, I freeze my own food, I dry my own food, I make my own herbs, I do all that. And I've done it since I was little. But it's an incredible amount of work, and I don't see that the young people have it in them en masse across society to do that. For sure, some are homesteading, some are doing all of that, but I don't think it's coming to the masses anytime soon. I don't see it in my kids.
I hope it goes that way to the
We're a society of convenience, and we've taught our children to, that they deserve it, and it's tricky. I don't know. I would love to see that. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm curious because as you said about the Tupperware, so that's a different type of plastic way back, right, 40 years ago compared to what they do now. Not that it's necessarily good, but I think I had heard that the Tupperware plastic is better because it was made back then. I don't know.
It's certainly possible, but I'm just going to point out there is not a single piece of plastic food storage that I've ever seen that discloses what's in it. Lois and I got rid of all our melamine plates. Melamine was one of the first plastics that came out around, what, it was 1930 or something. When I see old plastic, I stay as far away as possible because it's been very degraded. And the more it degrades, the more it's going to shed. It always leaches, but maybe less. I don't know. And the question is this, right? If you've got an old mayonnaise jar, why would you want to put the leftover pasta in a plastic container if you could use the glass jar? That's kind of where it is for me. And a lot of this is we're reducing risk, right? Like, how do we reduce our risk? Because it's silicone. Don't get me started on silicone. I do not recommend silicone for anyone, anywhere, for anything. There's a few things silicone's good for. Baby bottle nipples, implants, and just a little bit of convenience, right? And I actually brought food to the store today for us to eat, and I had a silicone lid topper on my glass bowl. I don't use them very often, but a little convenience is something we all need. We're imperfect. But silicone can withstand higher temperatures, but again, no disclosure what's in it, and the same chemicals that make plastic do all those cool things make silicone do all those cool things. And silicone, by the way, isn't silica glass, it's a chemical.
What about the gloves that I use to wash my dishes? Heavy duty rubber gloves.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we need to wear gloves to protect our hands and skin.
I have no choice.
Absolutely. And also sometimes as a food worker to protect the food, right? There's sort of like two reasons for wearing gloves. I think we all have to wear gloves sometimes. They're going to be plastic, they're going to be imperfect. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes.
I have two quick questions.
Okay.
One is about soda cans, so they're lined with plastic.
Absolutely.
Is there any alternative for, like, do certain companies make, besides glass, like, are there any companies that make a can, so any can?
So aluminum cans are one of the most perfectly recycled items on the planet, like 98, 99% recyclable, despite their plastic lining. It's just, the Coors company, by the way, thank you Coors, came up with the recycling process and it is incredibly efficient. So way to go. But when my husband drinks beer, we buy it in glass. We have a soda stream. I say a soda stream, I forget which one it is. It might be the other one. There's two different brands, but I have glass bottles. Yes, there's a plastic cap on them, but you could transfer it into a bottle without a plastic cap, like with a latch and a glass lid. I don't really think that there's many alternatives to soda and beer and those kinds of beverages. Everything is going to be lined in plastic.
Or it's going to be a seal at the top. So soda's particularly bad because there's so much sugar in it, so it's very corrosive.
No, and my other quick question was about nonstick pans, because I bought one that said, it had a green leaf on it, and it said, so, was I lied to?
So here's what I say about nonstick pans. I only use glass, cast iron, and stainless and carbon steel. That's what I use in my kitchen. I have one Le Creuset pan. They're a pretty high-end pan. And I also have Extrema, which is a full ceramic. Yep, full ceramic. I'm not sure about Le Creuset. I think it's probably okay, but I make my sourdough bread in it, and I use that. But on the regular non-sticks, if it was incredibly affordable, I'm certain it was terrible. Right? Because a $15 pan, I mean, how do they miraculously make it non-stick? It's going to have one of those 15,000 chemicals that are not disclosed, and that's that whole greenwashing thing. So I just don't trust it. And maybe I'm wrong. But you know what? In 25 years from now, when we really learn, if you've never seen the Teflon Story, it's Dark Waters. It's a movie. It's not really, it's sort of a documentary, but it's dramatized. It's a book. You can read the book as well. It is an unbelievable story. And I don't trust. So I guess I'm going to leave them with one thought, which is critical thinking. And if it is too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. You learn that stainless, if you heat it till the water bounces, it will then behave in a non-stick way. If you coat things with oil, and if you coat a pan with oil and flour, like dust, it's called dusting it with flour, it's pretty non-stick for baking. Sourdough can go right in the Le Creuset. It doesn't actually need to have parchment paper, which that's a whole nother, parchment paper. How do they make paper non-stick, right? Like, come on, critical thinking.
Oh, wow.
So, right? So it's like, it's everything and everywhere, because we are a society of convenience. And I know I just got up here and told you that life is not convenient, and I'm sorry. I think Corningware is good. It's basically a glass, However, that antique milk glass from Pyrex, the colorful ones, high lead content and cadmium and other things. So just don't use those. It's not Corningware, but.
Right. So the melamine, would you put that in the category of non-stick, don't give it to anybody, throw it out, or is that a vinyl flooring that could still be used by someone who has nothing else?
We donated those.
Yeah, and they were never used, so they were given to,
Yeah. And I like to think of things as I like to have a crutch. I don't think we have to throw away and get rid of all the things that I just said were bad. So if you have a plastic cutting board, leave it in your kitchen. Just don't use it. Use a wooden cutting board. Use a glass cutting board. Use a metal cutting board. And then 5 years from now, you're like, okay, I think I can let that plastic one go, and you let it go. Because it's hard to just switch sometimes, and having a little safety net kind of is helpful in the process.
Wood has some microbial properties.
Yes, we're gonna do a post on that. So wood. So everybody thinks plastic is safer around bacteria, and it's not. There's 3 different studies. One was UCal Davis, and I was just looking these up. And what they found was wood absorbs the bacteria. Okay, so if you take a wooden cutting board or a wooden utensil or whatever, and you wash it, you're getting most of it off, but some of it can seep in. Now, wood cutting boards are really hard wood, so not much is going to seep in. But when it seeps in, it dies. It's the wood that is protecting itself, is sort of the theory behind it. Whereas plastic can harbor bacteria of all sorts for hours and days, whereas wood, within a couple hours, doesn't have the bacteria anymore. So I always recommend wooden cutting boards of any sort that you clean them with a hot soapy water and a scrub brush, because it's going to have grooves, right? You're going to cut with it, you're going to make grooves. So the scrub brush is going to get the grooves clean. And if you do cook with a lot of meat, I think it's absolutely fine to have one for meat and one for vegetables, because you don't want to use it back to back. But wood is antibacterial. And
Janette, what should I use? Regular scrub brush?
yeah, well, I mean,
Or should I use a scrub brush that doesn't have plastic bristles?
so I don't like the plastic because it's leaving the microplastics in the water stream, right? So I didn't bring any brushes with me, but for brushes we use natural fibers.
All right, we're going to switch gears because we want to wrap up.
I'm going to let Lois do her bit, but I'm not leaving, so.
Yes, and then
Just
we
real
can
quick,
answer.
just
Yeah.
to add on to the wood thing, I had seen somewhere recently, they said that even though you clean the wood, spoons, cutting boards, etc., every once in a while you should actually clean it with vinegar to get everything.
A little salt and lemon, or baking soda and lemon. So lemon, vinegar, kind of the same. You can really scour it. You can get stink out of it, stains out of it. And periodically you can sand it to reduce the grooves. And you can also add oil. And that's a whole other thing to talk about, because they found that oil could harbor the bacteria a little bit more, but they really found that it also, even though it could, it really wasn't a problem.
All right, so beyond personal, which we got a whole lot of stuff, you have this card there. I just want to spend the last couple minutes talking about things that you can do at a broader level to help the community and the state. So this is some advocacy, and I'm gonna just go through some of the legislative things that we do at Beyond Plastic. And Leslie, and Kathy are here. Ready to put your hands up because you're from Beyond Plastic also, just so they can see you. Is this on? Good. All right, so there's 4 different pieces of legislation that I want to just talk about. Skip the Stuff, which, because we're Cranford and Westfield, we have passed Skip the Stuff ordinances in our town, which is great. You have one of your, in the handout, you have at the very top a little business card. We call that a tip card. So if you go to get takeout, or you go to a restaurant in Westfield or Cranford, or even another town, you can as well, and they give you a straw, or they give you plastic something with your takeout, and I want you to give them that tip card and say, here's a tip for you. So you don't have to get into a fight to say, you're breaking the law. Like, here's the legislation in our town, and I didn't ask for this cutlery, straw, all those things. So it's a gentle way to remind them that they're not supposed to be giving us unless we ask for plastic cutlery, condiments, and such. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because we're already ahead of the board. I will say there's legislation that looks very hopeful that it will pass at the state level, which will make the whole state required to do Skip the Stuff. It also will require schools to use metal cutlery or wood cutlery going forward. They have about 5 years to transition back to metal cutlery because our kids are eating off plastic all the time, as well as stadiums and dine-in restaurants that have 10 or more are going to have to use metal cutlery. So that's Skip the Stuff.
It's common sense.
Yes, so there's your tip card. Okay, this is a mouthful, so I'm going to try to talk about this one in common sense. So it has a long name, this Packaging and Paper Product Stewardship Act. I want you to think of, and you may have heard the expression, extended producer responsibility. So what this is saying in a nutshell is, if you made it, producer of packaging, you have to take it through its life cycle and figure out how you are going to dispose of it. You're going to have to pay from the full product life cycle the cost of getting rid of it. So today, if we take a bottle of water, there's what we call the free ride theories happening. So Poland Springs, biggest manufacturer of bottled water, they make these plastic bottles. They take water, it's just spring water from Maine that they're basically getting for free. They put it in the bottles, they take their trucks, they ride on the roads with their heavy trucks. They're destroying the roads, they're not paying for the roads that they're driving on. They bring it to us, we pay a fortune for this bottled tap water, and then we have to pay to get rid of it through our taxes and all the recycling or the incineration or the garbage pickup. So extended producer responsibility would say, hey, wait a minute, you made it, you've gotta pay for it, and we want you to reduce the packaging. We're gonna incentivize you that the less packaging you create, not just plastic, paper, metal, everything, we want you to reduce that to the minimum, because the more you're producing of packaging, the more you're going to have to put into a fund that is gonna come back to us, and it's gonna offset our recycling fees. So I looked at Westfield. We spend $720,000 a year for grand sanitation to do our recycling. Twice a month, they're picking up all of our recycling. In this bill, and we want all of you to let your elected officials know it's important, 90% of that cost would be offset by anybody who sells packaging to New Jersey. The bill would also require a reduction of the most harmful chemicals from packaging. It would require the manufacturers to educate us and help our conservation efforts be improved so that we can raise our conservation rates. It's a 130-page bill. It's really, really complicated, but it would be so critical to reducing the packaging, because if we look at our waste stream, up to 40% of our waste is from packaging, okay? So I think that's, I'm gonna leave it at that, but it's a complicated bill. And I'd love for people to sign a petition at the end that they support that. Artificial turf, Cranford, I know, is looking at some turf fields. If Scotch Plain was here, we've had success with Westfield. You don't want artificial turf. It's like, I listened to, artificial turf is horrible. We were successful in not having it done at Edison Fields. Hopefully we'll be similarly successful at not having it in other places in town, but it is just plastic. It is a field of plastic. It gets hot, it harbors bacteria, and I could go on and on about this. There's like, we could do a whole talk just about it, but artificial turf is not good. And that goes for playgrounds also. So all these lovely playgrounds that are ADA compliant and they are based on, you know, they're rubber, they are not good too. You see these these benches that we're saving our plastic bags to put in these track benches, and you see how they fade over time and then they start to crack. That's plastic, recycled plastic that's off-gassing and breaking into tiny particles that is then got young children playing on it. And it's problematic.
I'm gonna just make one question. If you wonder why are all these turf fields popping up, it's because the plastic companies and the people trying to get rid of old tires hire consultants, and they go around to push these turf fields, and they give all the reasons why you should do them, and that's why they're popping up all over the place.
And this was, Jean Lemberg from Westfield actually took these pictures, so this is just showing on one day, the natural grass was 97 degrees Fahrenheit, where the artificial turf and asphalt were 145 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets that much hotter.
Where our kids are playing
Yeah.
in polyester.
Last one that is going to be legislation soon, so we have bipartisan support at the state level, and this is passed, local ordinances have passed in about 30 towns now, most recently Elizabeth up here, is the containment of construction waste. So if you have seen any development in your neighborhood or had it done for personally, and they're cutting PVC pipe, or they're doing masonry, or they're doing decking, or any of those things, and if you observe them closely, unless they're using a wet vac and they have a tarp down, there are nanofibers, anything synthetic that's going to be plastics that are flying into the air, that are going into the soil, into the water, into everything. So this legislation, ordinances, it started in Margate, would require the construction workers to use shop vacs, to use tarps, to contain the material and safely dispose of it. So we're also advocating for that, and that we don't have in Cranford and Westfield. So push your environmental commission, your elected officials to say, why don't we have this in our towns?
String trimmers are basically microplastic factories.
Yeah,
And there's no-
string trimming, yeah.
And by the way, on the plastic construction debris, New Jersey is like the first place in the country to be focusing on this. It's really cool. Like, we are cutting it edge.
Yeah, that is true. Yes. Okay, so reasons to refuse single-use plastic. We're going to wrap up. We don't want to support fossil fuels. The carbon footprint, we didn't even get into that today. It's huge. These are here forever. Any plastic that was ever made is still here on the earth. It never goes away. It will be here forever. A tiny part is recycled. It leaches into our food and water. It's causing endocrine disruption and cancers. It's polluting. It's killing our marine life, our wildlife, and it's in us and in our food. So if that didn't give you enough reasons to get incentivized to reduce plastic, I don't know what will. Okay, I think, good. We are done. Thank you for coming. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
If I can make a plug, On the other end, if the stuff does get into the environment, I started a Facebook group a few years ago called New Jersey